What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Steve's Random Stuff. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, I'm back out here in the garage today. It's been a while since I've done a video, and I'm out here getting my boat ready and tackle ready to head up to Lake Sonoma this coming weekend to do a little night fishing. So I thought I'd share some tips with you if you plan on going out there this weekend or anytime to do some night fishing. You want to definitely get prepared for it. Make sure that you're safe. Being out there in the dark can be a little intimidating at times, so you definitely want to plan ahead and let people know where you're going, what time you'll be off the water, stuff like that. I kind of want to go through some of the things that I do and how I prep to get out there on the water. A little different than getting up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, head to the lake. You're getting up to the lake maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening. So usually it's going to be pretty hot when you get there, and so after dark you definitely want to have some clothing to put on, depending on what the forecast is. At times it can get a little damp if you're going to be out there all night long. Once you get past that midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, sometimes it can get kind of damp. If that air temperature drops below the water temperature, you can actually get a pretty thick fog layer. And that'll happen at Lake Sonoma, especially like in the later in the summer, in August and so on. When those cooler nights, you get this thick layer of fog on the lake, and it's really hard to see out there. So you definitely want to be aware of that. So definitely bring some clothing. As far as lighting, you would definitely want to get a decent headlamp of some kind. Make sure you have extra batteries for it as well. It's something that you can turn on to retie to get stuff out of your tackle bag or out of your tackle boxes. It also helps if you're landing a fish to see where that fish is at to help land it. If you're going to be netting a fish, you can shine the light headlamp on the fish and get that in the boat. Small flashlight of some kind is always good. You can shine that when you're re-rigging or looking for stuff in the boat. Just getting ready, and if you're going to be running around, depending on, especially with Lake Sonoma with all the trees and hazards out there, it's good to have some kind of spotlight. This is actually a Gobi light. It's remote controlled. This plugs into the bow of the boat, but this is something that you just can't plug in and expect it to work, because these require, I think, like 4 or 5 amps in order to power the spotlight. So that socket on the bow definitely needs to be rewired with some larger gauge wire. Otherwise it just won't work. Handheld spotlights work really well. I've used one for years before I got that. Just something that's rechargeable. 1 to 2 million candle power works fine. Something you can hold out the side of the boat, as you're driving down the lake or something, or idling around. You can see the shoreline and see where you're going. Make sure you're not going to hit anything. That's always a good thing to have. The other thing is something that we've been using for years are black lights, and this is an old black light that I've had for years. You can get them at Bass Pro Shops and so on. This has a black light, a single bulb on the front, and then a clear or white bulb on the back. Similar to this is a little bit more compact. It's the Bass Pro Shops model. Again, 2 bulbs for black lights on this side, and then also has 2 bulbs for the white on the other side, which you can shine inward on the boat. Again, battery operated as well as 12-volt operated as well. These work really well, and the reason I use the black lights is for fluorescent line. This is the Spiderwire brand EZ Mono. Fluorescent line. This glows under the black light really well. The 14-pound I use for my spinnerbaits, and I bump up to 20-pound for Texas rigs, jigs, and bottom bouncers, stuff like that. Even chatterbaits, I'll go to the heavier line, but 14 is probably about the lowest I go, and usually I'll go up to like 17 and then the 20. I get this at Walmart. It's pretty inexpensive. It holds up pretty well. There's also a fluorescent fluorocarbon. I forget who makes it. I think you can find it at Tackle Warehouse. I've never used it. I don't know how good it is, but I've heard there is if you like fluorescent line, if you prefer to use that, check that out. There is a fluorescent fluorocarbon out there that's available. Let's see. Oh, as far as the headlamp, I do like to wear a beanie on my head. This gives you a little cushion between the band and your head. Makes it a little bit more comfortable. It also keeps your head warm with that. As far as getting out on the lake, you definitely want to make sure that you're familiar with the water that you're going to be fishing. I haven't been to Clear Lake in several months, so before I go up to Clear Lake to do some night fishing, I definitely will get up there during the daytime to scout out some areas, because you definitely don't want to be up there at nighttime in the weed beds in the shallow water trying to fish some reaction bait or moving bait, and you'll just be frustrated and hung up in the weeds all night. So you definitely want to be able to get out there ahead of time, scout out the water you're going to fish at nighttime, and then plan your trip accordingly. Let's see here. Whenever clothing, lights, weather, again, plan for the weather. You know, check the dew point. If the dew point is, we'll kind of give you an idea if it's going to be damp or not. As far as your rods, you know, during the daytime I can have, you know, 8, 9, 10 rods on the deck. At nighttime I put everything away. 3 or 4 rods at the most is all I have out on the deck. I just try to keep them to one side, you know, one in my hand and then maybe 2 or 3 on the deck, but on one side of the boat so I can walk around the other side and not worry about stepping anything. Put everything else away, you know. You don't want to be tripping over stuff. You don't want to be stepping and breaking things. As far as co-anglers, you know, 5, 6 rods are probably all you need. And again, you want to plan ahead so that you have similar baits that you're going to be using in the daytime, and you can just switch to darker colors in the nighttime. All right, now as far as baits, one of the baits that I've used for a long time, and one of the things, you know, works really well are spinnerbaits. These are a couple black and blue, black and red, straight black spinnerbaits. Let's see here. This is a Persuader brand bait. I really like this one because it has this serrated, fluted edge on the bait, and for some reason that just seems to catch fish. I'll team that up with some kind of grub or something on the back. Another good option is a black and blue, or just, you know, dark color with a copper blade, and something about the copper blade really makes a difference. This one here has got 2 copper blades, and you know, again, just a little different look. Now the other option, you know, like I said, you don't always have to go dark colors. I've had some really good nights with these Mr. B spinnerbaits. You know, just shad color, white, pure white. Put a white trailer on that. Throw them up to the bank. With the spinnerbaits, you throw them up to the bank, let them sink down, and count down like 5, 6, 7 count or so. And you have to experiment with that to figure out where they're at as they sink down, and then all of a sudden just give your rod a quick snap. That'll get those blades spinning, and then just start reeling. Sometimes, a lot of times, what happens is as soon as you snap that bait, those fish will just hammer it, especially at Lake Sonoma on some of those steeper banks. As soon as you start reeling your line, those smallmouth will just crush these spinnerbaits. To counter that, another option is your chatterbaits. Again, black or white, either one. Experiment, you know, use one. If you're not getting bit, switch to the other lighter color. I have this teamed up with a 6-inch Yamamoto grub. Works really well, gives a lot of action on it. Another good trailer option is the Yamamoto Swim Senko, and with the Swim Senko I'll cut off about 1 inch or so off the head, and it'll make it about the same length as that grub, and it's a good option, a little bit different action, a little harder thump with that boot tail compared to the grub, which is going to go through the water a little bit quieter, I think. But again, at nighttime, it's all about that those vibrations that those fish can hone in on it. Now, if you start dragging the bottom, again, what I like to do is during the daytime in the summer, I like using these big Magnum shaky heads. These are the Strike King brand. The Mac jig head. See those Strike King? They come in different weights. You can get 1/2 ounce to even 3/4 ounce. Get a big 5/0 hook on there. And great in the summertime. I like throwing these big bite baits. This is the red crawler, I think it is. big worm on there. It's got a big curly tail. This fish hammer these red worms. But at nighttime, what I do, I can switch from the red worm to something like this big Magnum. This is Yamamoto 10-inch worm, curly tail. Drag that around, or even try something. This is a new bait I picked up. I haven't actually used these yet. I'll be using them this weekend. This is the Jean LaRue tattletale worm. You can see it's kind of hard to see. I think wiggles so much. The tattletale, real skinny tail. It's got a little bit of like a boot on there. It's hard to see that, but a little bit of a boot on there. I can put that on the shaky head. Another option with something like this, because it's a big profile, is drop shotting. I typically don't like to drop shot at nighttime because I just don't think that the fish zone in on the baits very well, especially on a smaller bait. I go to something a little more Magnum, you know, with a 4 or 5/0 hook on there, a little bit heavier weight, get it down there, and drop shot kind of the Magnum worms, you know, more of a bubble shot along that lines. And then the other baits are brush hogs. You know, you can get a Texas rig set up during the daytime, throw in green pumpkin, watermelon red, watermelon, something along that line. Then at nighttime, you just switch over your brush hog to the darker colors, and I generally go either just black and blue or black and red. Usually one of those two colors will produce. A couple other options would be like a June bug or June bug red, to give those a try, and those are good options. With their plastics, at nighttime, I think it's always a good idea to put some kind of scent on there. I'm a firm believer of using some kind of scent on those baits at nighttime. I really think it produces more bites, and it really helps you detect those bites more, because when those fish bite it, they hang on to it a little bit more. It gives you time to react and feel those bites. So I think that's about it as far as baits. You know, again, 3 or 4 rods. You can have a spinnerbait, a chatterbait, a Texas rig, and maybe that big grub or the big shaky head. And those are your 4 rods. You can use those during the daytime. You know, and of course, don't forget those topwater baits at dusk. If you're out there right at dusk time, you can be throwing some topwater, buzz baits, spooks, you know, you name it, give it a try. If it's really flat calm, go to a popper around the docks, around the trees. I think you can probably get some good bites at nighttime. And again, those bigger fish will come up to feed at nighttime. You know, you'll be fishing in, you know, less than 10 foot of water, compared to fishing at 20 or 30 feet during the daytime when you have a lot of activity on the lake. So hope those tips help you. Give it a try. Let me know in the comments how you do if you get out there and night fish, and if you have any other suggestions, I'd like to hear them. So again, thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you all later.